Okay. So this is a quick thing to add to the positivity bias story. So there was a letter, and this is a good sort of science thing, a letter that came after, this is from Garcia, I don't know the middle one, and Frank Schweitzer, who tends to not like things in general, I suppose. So he had this story, they had this piece where they just comment on it, and one of their big claims was against the jellyfish plots that there's some sort of drift, so we'll look at that. And the jellyfish plots are just visually right there, right? And we did a million regressions to say straight lines are straight lines, pretty much. But the other thing they had was they went to Luke, and I've talked about Luke, right? This LIWC text, this lexicon that's used in lots of different ways, right? It has emotion in it. It has some words where it says this is a positive motion or a negative motion kind of word, or elicits, or encodes it in some way. But many it doesn't. It doesn't have anything in terms of motion, but it has lots of other characteristics. And one of them is whether or not a word is a function word. So they went and said, well, let's take all the Luke words that are function words and see what their happiness scores are. And they plotted a histogram of that, right? And so, I don't really have a zoom on these things. Yeah. So if you see this, that's what this plot is, right? So these are our happiness sort of range here. And this is this distribution and say, well, look, these function words they're not neutral for a start, and they have a positivity bias. So they're trying to sort of say this is just like, I don't know what they're trying to say. They're trying to sort of say it's not such a big deal. Okay, so this was really infuriating. And I spent a lot of time just like doing a good job like explaining to, how this doesn't work. So title of our reply was Common Mistakes in Measuring Frequency-Dependent Word Characteristics, in the sort of tradition of Simon and Mandelbrot. It didn't go on, so we didn't get a chance to start going ad hominem or whatever. But so here's a funny thing. So these are words that Luke calls function words, right? Greatest, best, unique. I mean, they have a role which they modify, right? So these are deemed to be like that's a function word. Now, people don't rate this as a happy thing. They don't. It's a function word that I guess didn't have a negative or positive aspect in Luke. Anyway, this just seems kind of ridiculous to me. I mean, function words, it's good to say you have a bunch of function words, but it's more than just of and that sort of thing. It's actually a pretty big set of words that have these, all sorts of properties, right? They're describing things in interesting ways. So look at the words, just look at the words. There's a lot of text analysis, and I would say, I think I've said this, probably 99% of it, it's a technical estimate. People don't look at the words. They just do all sorts of things. This is just, these are the function words. This is a bigger list, right? So these are words, and you can see why you might say, well, billion is just a number, fair enough, but people see a billion and they're excited about it. And we can say that's good or bad, but we know that we're creating a texture and we can turn these words on and off if we feel like they're not representing something, like we did with coffin for Moby Dick and crying and cried, where we understood they were being used incorrectly, but hopefully that's just a function word in Luke. So they made this ridiculous histogram and didn't. I thought I'd talk about this. These look like good function words, and these are really neutral, right? These are really close to neutral, and they're pretty boring sorts of words. And then lots of negativity here, right? The don'ts and these sorts of things without apostrophes, and they're all low words, and yeah. So was kind of bonkers. And another one was what they do here, they somehow got hold of some list of words, and this is the frequency of usage for them, and then rated happiness. And they didn't show this plot. I'm putting this plot up. They had this, basically ran a regression through this and showed that it had a non-zero slope in a significant way. But you can see this is just a weird selection of words on frequency of usage. You would actually want to look at, this is words by rank, which is what we did for our jellyfish thing, right? So the most common word out to here. Zip is roughly the case that it's F is 1 over R, or we know there's a break in scaling. That's what this is. So this is really the same kind of data, and the regression through this is flat. So that is a horrible thing to do a regression through, right? That's just a nasty thing, and it's because they didn't treat frequency of usage properly, right? So this is basically going into a forest and grabbing animals in a strange way and not accounting for their size. So we do a number of these things where we take one of every animal and then make some story about the whole ecology in the forest. And that can be okay, but it also means you would have one ant, which is not a good way to represent what's going on in an Amazon forest, right? Which is, I think they're the largest biomass, is ants, right? All right, so that's I just had to talk about these things. Okay, this is a nutshell just for these slides. I added something, but basically we find this positive bias. 10 languages spread around the world. There's kind of a Tolstoy story there. We always like to, there's got to be a meta thing to say about the Anna Karenina line that just, because it's used so much.